Adilah Fatimi binti Khairuddin. I will explain 1.1 research overview. For chapter 1, this chapter introduces the research topic and provide the background of the study. It also explains the research problem being addressed. In addition, this chapter presents the research objective, research question, the theoretical framework, the significance of the study, the limitations, and the definition of the key related to this research. 1.2 Background of study. Cafe culture in Malaysia has grown rapidly, especially in urban areas like Kuala Lumpur. Cafe has grown into more than just place to eat. They are now social and lifestyle that attract young consumer, particularly Generation Z. This group is highly influenced by digital media, which shape their consumption preference and lifestyle choices. For Gen Z Muslim consumer, food choices are influenced by their religion belief, health awareness, and social factors. Halal insurance remain important, but not all the cafes in Kuala Lumpur are halal certificates. Many use the no pork, no lard label to show that prohibited animal products are not used. However, this label does not fully guarantee halal compliance, as it does not address ingredient sourcing, food handling, or food contaminations. Despite this, some consumers still accept this. Therefore, this study focuses on understanding how Gen Z Muslim consumers perceive and evaluate the no pork, no lard label in Kuala Lumpur's cafe industries. This will provide insight into consumer trust, decision making, and the role of informal halal signal in 1.3 is problem statement. The no pork, no lard label is becoming common in Kuala Lumpur cafe as a way to attract Muslim consumers without halal certifications. However, this is limited research on how Generation Z Muslim consumers perceive the credibility and the reliability of these labels. Most studies focus on formal halal certifications, halal logo, or Muslim-friendly brandings, while informal labels like no pork, no lard are less explored. This creates a gap in understanding consumer trust, preference, and decision-making, especially among Gen Z Muslims who are an influential and growing consumer group. Because of this lack clarity, consumers may be confused or make misinformed dining choices. Therefore, this study aims to examine how Gen Z Muslim consumers perceive and evaluate the no pork, no lard label in Cafe Kuala Lumpur, providing insight into trust and informal halal signals. 1.4 Research objective. The objectives of this study are as follows. First, to examine how the level of awareness and understanding of the no pork, no lard among Generation Z Muslim consumers in cafe in Kuala Lumpur. Second, to examine how much Generation Z Muslim consumers trust this label. Third, to identify the factors that influence their preference toward cafe that use the label no pork, no lard. Finally, to analyze the relationship between consumer perception and dining decision in cafe in Kuala Lumpur. Is research question and hypothesis. Research questions. This study guided by 4 research questions. First, what is the level of awareness and understanding of the no pork, no lard label among Generation Z Muslim consumers in cafe in Kuala Lumpur? Second, how do Generation Z Muslim consumers perceive and trust this label? Third, what factors influence their preference toward cafe that use the no pork, no lard label? Finally, does consumer perception on this label significantly influence dining decision among Generation Z Muslim consumers? For hypothesis is quantitative. Based on this research question, 4 hypotheses are proposed. First, there is a significant positive relationship between awareness and understanding of the no pork, no lard label and Generation Z Muslim consumer preference for cafe that use the labels. Second, there is a significant positive relationship between perceived credibility and trust of no pork, no lard label and Generation Z Muslim consumer dining decisions. Third, religion sensitivity has a significant positive influence on Generation Z Muslim consumer preference toward cafe that use the no pork, no lard labels. Finally, perceived food safety and transparency significantly influence dining decision among Generation Z Muslim consumer in Kuala Lumpur cafe. Theoretical framework. This study is based on consumer perception theory and halal consumption behavior literature. These theories explain that consumer belief, understanding and evolution influence their purchasing and dining decisions. In the context of this study, how consumer perceive halal-related information play an important role in their choice of cafe. Independent variable. In this research, there are 4 independent variables. These are awareness and understanding of the no pork, no lard label, perceived credibility and trust, religion sensitivity, and perceived food safety and transparency. These factors are expected to influence consumer response towards the label. Dependent variable. The dependent variable in this study is consumer preference and dining decision. Figure 1.1 shows the conceptual framework, which illustrates the relationship between the independent variable and the independent variable in this diagram illustrates the factor influencing the consumer preference dining decisions. These factors include awareness and understanding, perceived credibility and reliability, religion sensitivity, and perceived food safety and transparency. In summary, these factors influence consumer preference and their final dining decision. Significance of the study. On the practical side, this study valuable insight for cafe operators. It helped them to understand the expectation of Gen Z consumer, which can guide them in improving labeling and communication strategy to better meet customer needs. From the theoretical perspective, the study contributes to the literature on halal-related customer behavior. It focuses on informal food assurance label, offering fresh insight into how they shape consumer decisions. Limitation of the study. This study focuses on only Gen Z Muslim consumer in Kuala Lumpur, so the result may not apply to other groups or areas. Also, using a quantitative approach means deeper motivation might not be fully captured. 1.9 Definition of key terms. Let's look at some key terms used in this study. First, no pork, no lard refer to a label showing that a product contains no pork, no lard, but it doesn't have halal certifications. Next, Gen Z Muslim consumers are mostly born between 1997 until 2012. Finally, consumer perception is how consumers view and evaluate product information. Chapter 2 Literature Review. 2.1 Overview. This chapter reviews the existing literature related to this study. It's organized into 3 main sections. First, we look at consumer perception of halal and informal label. Second, we examine halal certification, trust and food safety. Third, we focus on Generation Z Muslim consumer behavior in food service context. This section highlights previous study, common research method and finding and identify gaps. This helps justify why the study focuses on the no pork, no lard label in cafe in Kuala Lumpur. 2. Discussion of literature review. First, consumer perception of halal label. Research showed that halal labels are important for Muslim consumers because they signal compliance with religion dietary law. Halal certification and awareness can influence purchase intention and credibility, helping reduce concern about product compliance. However, halal label alone may not always affect decisions, especially if awareness is low or other product features are more important. Informed label like no pork, no lard signal Muslim-friendly option without formal certifications. This label can be confusing and does not fully replace official halal certifications, particularly for cross-contamination and ingredient sourcing. This highlight need to study how young consumers like Gen Z understand this informal certification, credibility and trust. Halal certification is a key factor in building consumer trust and guiding purchase decisions. It enhances perception of food quality, safety, and compliance with religion requirements, which can boost preference and brand loyalty among Muslim consumers, including Gen Z. However, research shows that the relationship between certification and consumer behavior is complex. Some Gen Z consumers may rely more on community feedback and social media than on official halal logo. This indicates the trust is influenced by multiple factors such as peer recommendation, brand reputation, and social influence, not just certification alone.
So I will continue the rest for the chapter 2, which is start from the 2.2.3, Gen Z Muslim behavior in food service. For this section, previous study shows that Gen Z Muslim consumers behave differently from our older generation. They are very digitally savvy and highly influenced by social media. And at the same time, they're still sensitive to religious values. When choosing food or cafes that they want to go, they don't only look at halal aspect but also lifestyle, like brand image, quality, food quality and online reviews. Usually like today, we are influenced by social media like TikTok that post and engage the viral cafe, so that can attract Gen Z Muslim to go and try their cafe. So however, most past studies focus on halal food in general, not specifically in cafe settings or informal label like no pork, no lard. This shows a clear gap that our study aims to 2.3 literature trends and gaps. Based on the literature, there are a few clear trends. Most previous studies focus heavily on formal halal certification and how it affects a trust and purchase intentions. The majority of these studies are use quantitative survey methods with statistical analysis such as registration or SEM. Another common finding is that halal awareness plays an important role in influencing consumer decision, especially in Gen Z. However, very few studies examine informal label like no pork, no lard, especially in food service or cafe. Chapter 2 is 2.4, summary. To summarize the literature review, halal certification is generally seen as a strong or important indicator of trust and attention and purchase intention among Muslim consumers, which is Gen Z, especially Gen Z. However, informal labels such as no pork, no lard are still not well studied and may create confusion regarding credibility and trust. Most past research focus on general food products rather than cafe settings. Therefore, our study, is aimed to fill the gap by examining how Gen Z Muslim consumer perceive and respond to the label no pork, no lard that have in Kuala Lumpur cafes. On to chapter 3, which is methodology. For chapter 3, I will explain the methodology used in our research. This chapter covers the design, sampling, instruments, data collection, analysis, ethics, and also our project time frame, which is timeline. This is the same. So, this is the methodology is structured to ensure our objective and hypotheses are addressed systematically. And this is we use a quantitative research approach for this 3.2 research design. There are 5 points in this slide. So, as I mentioned earlier, this study adopts a quantitative research approach. The research design is explanatory and correlational study because it aims to examine the relationships between perceptions of Gen Z Muslim and their dining decisions. Data are collected at one point in time, cross-sectional study. The research is conducted in non-contrived setting, which is respondents are surveyed in their natural cafe environment. Means that when they go to the cafe that we are aim, so we will survey on that time. The unit of analysis is individual Gen Z Muslim. They are consume food or beverages in cafe that located in Kuala Lumpur. Population and sampling. So the target population in our research is Gen Z Muslim consumers in Kuala Lumpur who visit the cafes. We know that Gen Z refers to individuals that born in age 1997 until 2012. So our sampling technique is non-probability convenience sampling that we use due to time constraints and ease of access to our respondents, which is Gen Z. So our sampling criteria is include Muslim, age 18 until 28, cafe visitors in Kuala Lumpur, aware of no pork, no lard label, and the sample size is approximately 300 respondents, which is adequate for registration analysis. For instrument development and testing, data are collected using by structured questionnaire adapted from the previous studies, and the questionnaire is administered in English and also Bahasa Malaysia. In the Google form, they have to choose which is want to answer in English or Bahasa Malaysia. And they have a 5 section consists in our questionnaire, which is first is demographics, second is awareness and understanding of the label, third is credibility and trust, fourth is religious sensitivity and food safety, lastly is dining decision. So all items are measured using a 5-point Likert scale, which is starting from strongly disagree until strongly agree. A pilot test involving 30 respondents is conducted to assess reliability with Cronbach's alpha values of 0.70 or above considered acceptable. 3.5 Data collection procedure. So data collection is conducted over a 4 weeks period using by two methods. First is online through Google form that we share in social media, and the second method is on site at selected cafe that we go to survey on the cafe directly, and selected cafe in Kuala Lumpur, obviously. Respondents are briefed on the purpose of the study, participation in voluntary, and complete questionnaire are screened for completeness before 3.6 plan for the data analysis. The collected data are analysed using SSPS. Several statistical analyses are conducted, including descriptive analysis. Descriptive analysis is to summarize respondent profiles. Reliability analysis using Cronbach's alpha. For the correlation analysis, to examine relationships between the variables. And for multiple registration analysis, to test the proposed hypothesis from H1 until 3.7 research ethics consideration. For our study, our research, ethical consideration are strictly, carefully followed. Participation is voluntary, and respondents are free to withdraw at any time without any consequences. There are no strictly force them to answer our survey and also to answer our questionnaire. And all responses are kept anonymous and confidential, of course, and the data collected are only used for academic purpose. No personal identifying information is collected from our respondents. 8 slide project timeline. So this study is carried out over 15 weeks semester. The first 1 until 3 weeks are used for proposal and instruments design, that we designing the questionnaire. Week 4 and 5 are for pilot testing and refining all the questionnaire that we make. And weeks 6 until 9, data collections is conducted, followed by the data analysis in weeks 10 until 12. Finally, the last 2 weeks are allocated for our report writing and final submission.